was a night this small town in Kentucky will never forget. It started with a busload of children. It ended in the worst drunk driving accident in U.S. history.
Oh, I get so angry. Because it's such a waste.
A year later, new revelations about the accident that killed 27. And some hard questions for the people who made the bus. Are some buses accidents waiting to happen? She escaped from an armed robbery conviction and was on the run for 10 years, but she changed her ways and raised a family. Now that family is struggling to get her back out of prison. Today, an update on Pamela Rogers, alias K. Smith. They are about to invade from the far corners of the universe. Ghosts, aliens, and strange beings. They are the summer movies, and we will have a sneak preview.
Hello and welcome to Inside Edition. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Every parent is concerned about the safety of children on their way to school. Taking the bus should be safe. So many kids do it. But unfortunately, there are dangerous buses out there. Ralph Nader is in Washington with details about bus safety. Ralph?
Thanks, Bill. Drunk driving and unsafely engineered school buses are a lethal combination. 67 passengers, most of them children, were struck by this combination on a Kentucky road last May. This story shows the endless tragedies which are caused when a person takes a few drinks and when a few federal officials push for vehicle safety deregulation in Washington. Here is Joel Loy's report.
This desolate stretch of Kentucky interstate bears witness to an event so terrible that it stunned a nation. At 10:55 p.m. that Saturday night, a church bus carrying 67 youngsters and adults home from an outing was struck head-on by a pickup truck going the wrong way. The ensuing fire turned the bus into a death trap.
You could see the kids jumping out of the rear end of the bus while it was on fire, and there was a few guys that were trying to break in the windows and get the kids out. And they were all just coming running towards us, screaming and crying. I had people set a dead person on me, and I was trying to get out, and I had my eyes were closed and I stopped breathing, and then I had said Jesus, and I woke up.
Within minutes, 27 were dead or dying. Only 3 were adults.
There was a lot of them in the hallways of the bus trying to get in. There's several piled on top of each other.
Many others were burned, scarred for life. The cause of the fire that actually killed the children has raised serious questions about the safety of every bus in America. The cause of the crash was linked to drunk driving. Police say the pickup truck driver had a blood alcohol content more than twice the legal limit. 34-year-old Larry Mahoney was charged with 27 counts of murder. Some were quick to come to Mahoney's defense.
It's just one of them freak accidents that could happen anywhere, anytime. It could have happened with somebody that wasn't drinking.
Easier for most to understand, perhaps, is the reaction of those at the Radcliffe Assembly of God, the church that sponsored the trip. Here, the families of many of the people on the bus have turned their energies to the crusade against drunk driving.
I was angry.
Glynis and Charles Thompson lost their 13-year-old daughter, Emily.
Sooner or later, it's going to affect maybe even you. But what are we doing about it?
Killing by a drunk driver is the only socially acceptable form of murder in our society. Chuck was on fire before the bus even stopped moving.
Janet Kita's husband, Chuck, died, leaving her alone with 2 children.
All we have right now is a grave marker down at the cemetery, and it's pretty hard to teach children how to bond with that growing up.
This is the Ford bracket.
Janie and Larry Fair lost their 14-year-old daughter, Shannon. Like the others, they are also committed to getting the drunk driver off the road, but they have dedicated themselves to another cause as well.
How can a 3,200-pound pickup truck hit a bus and the guy in the pickup truck walk away from the accident? And there was not one broken bone nor any significant injury on any kid on that school bus as a result of the impact all the deaths, all the injuries were the result of either smoke inhalation or flame.
The fairs allege that the Ford bus was built in March of 1977. This was just days before new federal regulations went into effect, regulations that required a strong metal cage to protect the gas tank in a crash.
You can actually see the bolt holes that had been drilled in the frame to allow for the cage to be mounted. Ford refused to mount that cage until absolutely required to do so by law.
The fairs believe the fire started after the gas tank was punctured by a leaf spring when the rivets that held the leaf spring bracket failed. They say Ford twice had recalls on those rivets, yet continued to use them, while other manufacturers used much stronger case-hardened bolts. But in their report on the crash, the National Transportation Safety Board said that it was difficult to predict if and how the results of the accident may have differed if the bus had been equipped with a fuel tank guard. The fairs are suing Ford and the company that made the bus coach. Their Washington, D.C. lawyer, John Cole, has petitioned the NTSB to re-examine the case.
The gas tank was pushed back 3 feet almost. And if it hadn't been pushed back, it wouldn't have happened. If you had the cage around it, this wouldn't have happened. So I don't agree with the NTSB on that. If the cage had been there, if the bolts had been there, these children would still be alive.
Cole also cites a 1973 Ford memo, which he calls the Let 'em Burn letter.
What it did was it showed themselves, it was an interoffice memo, that it was they'd save a lot more money and make a lot more money if they didn't fix their vehicles, their fuel systems, to the tune of estimated $88 million they would make. So they decided to let them burn and not fix it, and they could just pay off lawsuits. But you see, to the families of people who are burned to death, it's a little more to it than dollars.
In fact, before anyone brought suit, Ford offered settlements to the families involved, totaling an estimated $40 million. There was a settlement from Ford to many of you folks, was there not?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. And without any of you approaching Ford, as I understand.
Right.
Was part of that settlement not to discuss the bus safety issue?
Yeah, of course. You know, people want to cover up. You don't disclose anything.
We wanted to be able to speak out, to be able to address the issue. If we had all the information in the world about what happened, but were unable to tell other people, what good would it do us, or what good would it do anyone else?
When Inside Edition contacted Ford for comment, we received a written reply, which says in part that school buses are an extremely safe and reliable means of transportation. The needless tragedy, says Ford, was caused by drunk driving. It has been stressed over and over again that the real answer to reducing needless highway fatalities is getting drunk and drugged drivers off the road. The story doesn't end here, however, nor does it end with those buses built before April 1st, 1977. Those so-called pre-standard buses still make up an estimated 17% of the nation's school bus fleet, perhaps more than 66,000 school buses. A just-released federal report recommends that states, local school districts, and private contractors that are still operating pre-1977 school buses replace them with more recent models as rapidly as possible. The old buses are flooding the market, becoming a cheap buy for church groups, summer camps, and the like. There may be 50 to 100,000 of those buses on the road. And even brand new buses may pose many of the dangers associated with the Kentucky tragedy.
They're present on virtually every school bus today, so we believe it will happen again, yes.
Federal standards still only mandate one emergency exit. Some states are demanding window exits and roof hatches. The fuel tank is still located outside the frame, inches from the front service door. And most important, perhaps, the seating material is flammable polyurethane foam. The foam is used for cushioning in a crash. But when burned, it also produces lethal fumes like those that killed many on the Kentucky bus. Statistically, bus fires are rare, but they do happen. The seating material has been outlawed for most city buses, but is still the standard for school buses. In this scientifically monitored test, the bus engine was removed and the fuel tank filled with water so that gas and oil would not contribute to the burning. The initial fire came from 4 crumpled up newspaper pages in a paper bag. Within 40 seconds, fire has ignited the seat cover, and smoke is rising from the heated polyurethane foam cushioning. After a minute and a half, the bag is no longer a factor in the fire. The burning polyurethane produces black smoke and toxic fumes. The best you can hope for in a bus drill is evacuation out both doors in a minute and a half. In less than 3 minutes, the smoke layer is down to the top of the seat backs. A few breaths would be lethal. At 4 minutes, the fire jumps from seat to seat, flashover. The bus will soon be an inferno. And this is what happens after just 10 minutes. Some makers do offer flame-retardant seats as an option. The company that provided this tape says only 5 to 10% of their sales are for the safer seats.
We can make them safer, and we can do it affordably and cheaper. And the question is, why don't we do that?
Children are just at the mercy of adults. And if some adult doesn't stand up for these children, then they have no voice. They have no voice except ours.
A memorial service was held on the first anniversary of the crash. Many will carry the scars, physical and emotional, for the rest of their lives. The man accused of causing the tragedy is out on bond, back at work, awaiting trial in November. The jury's verdict is certain to be analyzed in terms of public sentiment on drunk driving. And a year later, the safety standards of the buses which carry our children are still in question.
We will give you an address in a minute where you can write for more information. But first, Ralph, what you're really saying is the government isn't watching this situation closely enough.
That's correct, Bill. Washington hasn't upgraded its safety standards for school buses since 1977. What's needed is public protest to get the Department of Transportation to issue tougher school bus standards. We need, for example, the fuel tank to be properly shielded and behind the frame. We need burn-resistant fabrics. We need better braking systems.
And of course, all this costs a lot of money, which is why there's resistance to putting it in.
But the loss of children and the horrible burns that you've just seen, that costs money, and it costs anguish and great tragedy. We can spend money on protecting our children.
All right, Ralph, thank you for that report. And if you would like more information on the school bus safety, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Center for Auto Safety, 2001 S Street Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20009. And when we come back, an update on the story about the fugitive mom. She committed a crime but then turned her life around. Now she's back in jail, leaving her family in shock.
It's not something you would ask your mom. Mom, did you escape from prison at any time in your life?
We have an update now on a story we've gotten a lot of reaction to. Imagine your mother, a good mom, nothing very unusual about her. But then the police show up at the front door and take her off to jail. Well, that's what happened to a Maryland family. Here's Vanessa Moody.
Portrait of an American family. A family centered around wife and mother, Kay Smith, a woman haunted by a secret past. Kay Smith led two lives. The life she struggled to achieve was in a nice neighborhood in a Baltimore suburb. Over the years, she completed her education and became a successful real estate agent. Kay and her husband Ray took in a foster child, Lisa. And the great joy of Kay's life was realized when her sons James and Dan left Kay's ex-husband to join her family.
She made sure we had the family unity, and it wasn't the Cleavers or anything like that, but it's close to sitcom.
The situation became far from comic a year ago when Kay Smith was arrested on a fugitive warrant. Kay Smith was really Pamela Rogers, convicted of armed robbery. 10.5 years before, she had walked away from a prison work release program in South Carolina. Kay lived with the fear of exposure for more than 10 years. Her ex-husband, Danny Rogers, held the information over her head. The end came when Rogers was convicted of a grisly murder in Idaho.
She says, Mother, Danny called me and said he had turned me and they're going to pick me up.
Kay didn't run this time, but she still didn't tell her sons and her husband about her past.
It's not something you would ask your mom. Mom, did you escape from prison at any time in your life? It's just not something you do. I had no idea. She never brought it up. I never asked.
If it would have been me, I don't think I would have told anyone either. I think I would have kept that my own little secret.
After a routine prisoner exchange with South Carolina, today Kay is incarcerated in Maryland, about a 10-minute drive from her home. She could remain in prison until 1993. This Free Mom rally was organized to show community support for Kay and to try to impress South Carolina authorities with the public sentiment in favor of a pardon or parole.
Well, this is it. What you see is it. We're just missing one more. And hopefully this will be the big thing that brings her back to us.
But now a South Carolina board has denied Kay Smith a chance at a pardon. They have, however, moved up her parole date to December 15th of this year.
Well, Kay's family is, of course, grief-stricken that she will not be pardoned, but they now have to wait till December, as you just heard, to have Kay back. Just ahead, movie madness. This could be the biggest summer in film history. A look at the big pictures next.
Scott, you're amazing. There's nothing amazing about it. I know this ship like the back of my hand.
Last night I saw Indiana Jones 3. Pretty good. Lots of snakes, the usual stuff. That movie has already sold $38 million worth of tickets in less than 1 week. Amazing. And this could be the biggest box office summer in movie history. Here's Steve McPartland.
He's back. Harrison Ford as the swashbuckling daredevil archaeologist Indiana Jones. And this time he's not alone.
Dad? Junior? Don't call me that, please.
Academy Award winner Sean Connery is signed on as Indy's father, Professor Henry Jones, and together they set out on an incredible adventure. The plot of this one, titled Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade, is not unlike the first of the trilogy, Raiders of the Lost Ark. In this one, Indy is in pursuit of a lost religious article again, the Holy Grail. In his way are the same bad guys from picture number 1.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
And of course, there is the reluctant love interest. I'll bet he gets the girl in the end anyway. Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade is probably going to be one of the blockbusters of the summer. And if it is, I'd be a little hesitant to believe the title. Now suppose you get bogged down with the summer blues. Who you gonna call?
Suck in the cuts, guys. We're the Ghostbusters.
They're back. Those wild and wacky ghost-chasing guys, and this time they're out to save the world. The original cast from the first Ghostbusters has returned en masse, and this edition has the same quick repartee.
Looks like a giant Jell-O mold. I hate Jell-O. Oh, come on. There's always room for Jell-O.
As well as the same slimy special effects. Yuck. If you're looking for a good time indoors this summer, who you gonna call? It'll be a good summer for you Trekkies. Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, and the crew of the Starship Enterprise are back on your neighborhood big screens. This, the 5th motion picture based on the TV series, is directed by Captain Kirk. William Shatner. The crew finds the ship taken over by enemy forces. Sounds pretty serious, doesn't it? But there's always room for fun on the Enterprise.
But I know this ship like the back of my hand.
There is one real good thing about movies like Star Trek: The Last Frontier. You know what you're going to get. Some favorite characters, witty dialogue, and great special effects. Not unlike another summertime favorite, Bond. James Bond is back. Timothy Dalton stars as Britain's super agent for the second time, and this time, Bond has a license to kill. That's also the name of the movie. This kind of flick is what Hollywood calls a formula movie. Bond features great effects, nifty little gadgets, and of course, great-looking women in various stages of undress. Not unlike any other Bond movie you've ever seen, but what the heck, they're all fun. The one sequel I think you'll have trouble warming up to is The Karate Kid Part 3. I mean, really, just how many times is this guy going to get beat up before he packs it in? And why do people always pick on this guy? It's probably because no one can believe he's still a teenager after all these years. I'd like to give him a smack myself. Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita star. I haven't seen it, but I have this dreadful feeling the kid wins in the end again.
There will be scores of movies released this summer, ranging from the epic Batman starring Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton to my favorite title, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Now, there is one more sequel to report about, a remake of the Beach Party movies with a brand new singing heartthrob replacing Frankie Avalon.
Boom, boom, boom. Going Surf City 'cause it's 2-1. Yeah, we're going Surf City, gonna have some fun. We're going Surf City 'cause it's 2-1. Yeah, we're going Surf City, gonna have some fun. 2 girls for every boy.
That was just a rehearsal. That was a rehearsal. I was just warming up.
Don't give up your day job.
Listen, I can't even have my life anymore because everywhere I go, there's a little camera that I don't see, and you're behind it.
That's right. You know, when we went to TV school, when we were little kids, they taught you that a camera is like a loaded gun.
Yeah.
You just shot yourself in the foot again.
Right. Well, there will be a loaded gun at your head soon. But, I mean, you know, he gets away with all this stuff, right? I've got something on you.
You do?
Yep. I'm blowing your cover here.
Right now.
Not many people know this, but Steve McPartlin has made his movie debut this summer. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. He told me not to say anything. How'd you get the leaves growing out of your head there?
That's
you know, it's all the mousse you put in your hair, I guess. It's nice to see you again, Steve. Up next, some coming attractions of our own. I knew you. Coming up tomorrow, the story of one woman's struggle to bring a new life into this world. Please join us. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Bill O'Reilly. See you tomorrow.